Welcome and good morning. This is Larry Cormichael, one of the co-leaders of the LCI Greater Des Moines Community of Practice. And welcome to our May meeting. Our community of practice is set up so that we allow you and others to connect with each other, share your lean journey, and learn about industry trends and practices. And we're excited this morning to introduce the latest and newest Lean Learning Series topic. Is just released by LCI in the last month, and it's their 7th presentation titled Conditions of Satisfaction. It's some great new material. And before we get started, I want to thank this month's sponsor, A+ Communications and Security, based out of Des Moines. They provide security and communication services, not only to commercial and retail, but to residential. So thank you again for your sponsorship this month. And if you and your organization would like to sponsor us in a future month, please note that on the evaluation form that I will share with you at the end of today's presentation. A couple of announcements here. The Lean in Design Forum starts next week on the 19th. In 2 days, it is a virtual platform. I'm not sure this discount code applies anymore. It was there last month. So check out the link as noted. And if you're on the design side or design build, you may gain a lot of new information from connecting to other practitioners that use lean in design. And save the date, 23rd LCI Congress. It is currently planned to be live in Phoenix, Arizona, October 19th through 22nd. There is a unique URL, lcicongress.org/2021. Check that out for the agenda and when you can sign up and register for the event. And one last sponsor is the Bosch Refine My Site. They are a national sponsor, which we greatly appreciate, of all communities of practice with LCI. So thank you again for your sponsorship for the entire National Community of Practice organization. The conditions of satisfaction for the use of today's presentation, and we are doing conditions of satisfaction this morning. These materials are copyrighted by the Lean Construction Institute. Slides or materials may not be copied or used in any other way than this presentation. I am allowed to share the presentation slides in PDF format only with those that attend. We are taking attendance at that email address. If you'll request the slides later today, I will send those to you. So let's get started. Realize that the LCI Lean Learning Series is set up for live in person, which is where we hope to be starting next month. So we're going to change the format slightly from this presentation, and we're going to share our responses using the Zoom chat feature. Instead of it being a large room in a training room where we can interact more informally, we're going to ask you to respond several times using the Zoom chat feature. The goal is that we share with one another and we hear something, we say, yeah, that's new, or I share that frustration, or there's a new idea that someone shared. Today's topic, conditions of satisfaction. You'll gain some insight to recognizing the project as a promise, which is a unique way of looking at your projects, and the elements of making a sound promise, which include conditions of satisfaction. And then I'll cover how does the condition of satisfaction relate to project delivery. For continuing education, either AIA or AGCM Lean or other continuing education that's required for your certifications, you'll need to self-report, as we do not have the ability to issue certificates of attendance. Your lean journey to mastery, which I hope every one of you attending this morning has as a goal, is that if you're at the unaware stage with conditions of satisfaction this morning, great, you're in the right place. After you become aware, the next steps are apply the new knowledge, the new tools, to understand them, become competent, and then master them, and continually circle back with continuous improvement, which is part of the Plan, Do, Check, Act of lean practice. Your journey should be what you want to accomplish is becoming a master, but it's not the destination as master. It is mastering the tools and using them every day on your projects. Several times during the presentation this morning, I'm going to bring up some discussion questions. So what is your experience with unmet expectations from others on a project? And let me rephrase that for you. When have you had someone make a promise to you and they don't keep it and it causes a train wreck on your project? I experienced this in my decades in the construction industry, where I would make a request of a subcontractor or my crews as a general self-performing work, and the promise wasn't kept, or they never made a promise in the first place. So we're not set up live where we have discussion groups of 3, but we are going to ask you to use the chat feature. So what's your experience with broken promises from others on a project? And I'm going to turn this over to Jenny with the Whites Company and let her read off your comments in the chat box. Jenny?
I don't see any comments yet. However, I do have a couple examples. The one that comes to mind first is being told that material is going to be there when I need it to be there, and only finding out later that that was not the case, and they're just trying to keep it from becoming a confrontation. We do have a couple coming in now. It is trades completing work in an area completely versus getting it mostly done. And most often the GC doesn't remove constraints on time.
Well, Jenny, thank you. And as you warm up your fingers, we'll have several more opportunities for you to respond to our questions. Let's move on and look at a project as a promise. And maybe you've never done this. When I was reviewing this material and studying the content, I thought, yeah, a project is a promise. You have this network of promises on a project. The client makes a promise to build a project. The CMGC makes a promise contractually to build the project. All the trade partners, vendors, and suppliers make promises by contract to the CMGC to build a project. So we have project level promises. And what we want to do is improve the quality of these promises, improve the quality of these commitments, and have people actively take responsibility for their commitments, their promises, so that it creates a culture on your project. When someone makes a promise and a commitment, it is kept. So what's the elements of a promise? We have a customer, the person making the request. The owner of the project asks the CMGC or the prime contractors to build this specific promise. And the performer, the contractors, respond with a commitment, say, we will, as the performer, meet your conditions of satisfaction, comply with the contract, and hopefully exceed your expectations. There is always a negotiation, whether it's price, schedule, contract terms. How does this take place? The conditions of satisfaction are negotiated, and part of that conversation, part of that act of negotiating, you will reach some agreements, compromises probably, and make a promise. It's developed by the people involved in the request and the promise. It's not done by someone outside. It is those with the authority and responsibility to negotiate the conditions of satisfaction. And yes, we tend to, in this profession, write them all down to the best of our ability. And then we also write in our contracts what happens if you don't keep your promise. We have default clauses and other written contract requirements. Both parties need to mutually agree. They need to have measurable statements. In other words, when's a project start, when it's finished, there's your time measurement. What's the cost of the project? Money measurement. Quality is contract documents, specifications that the design professionals put together, and then things are inspected against that to make sure the minimum quality is present. And it's materials and workmanship and performance with many design build contracts. And this is all what many of you have been doing to date so far. And of course, there's a time frame when the promise must be kept. So the elements of a promise, I think every one of you have experienced this in your professional and your personal lives. So let's look at the basic action workflow of a promise. We have a customer and we have a performer. The customer prepares to make a request of the performer. So there's this preparation. This goes to a customer making the request of the performer. Here's what I want. And we're going to use an example here for the next several minutes of a drywall subcontractor makes a request that in these 5 rooms, in this hospital addition, I want everyone else finished so I can hang the drywall over the metal studs. So they make a request. Well, there are, in my example, 3 preceding trades. So they're going to ask 3 performers and they're going to negotiate conditions of satisfaction. So I will hang the drywall in the 5 rooms. When you, the electrician, not only are you finished with your electrical rough-in, but you've passed all inspections, including any government inspections, such as city electrical inspector. We have med gas rough-in by the mechanical piping contractor, same thing. What are the conditions of satisfaction? Not only is the piping installed, it's inspected, and I'm sure it has been tested. And then last trade in the wall, and I'm sure I'm missing some for the medical builders. Let's say we have rough carpentry with blocking and wood items. Again, is it all there? Is it all in the correct location? The customer asked the performer to be finished with those 3 trades, and they define conditions of satisfaction. And of course, they want to say, well, when do you need to do this work? One of the conditions of satisfaction negotiations is when will the 3 of you be finished in those 5 rooms? So they perform the work, and the performers, the 3, say, we're finished. We have met all the conditions of satisfaction that you, the customer, have asked for. Well, now the customer has to look at the work and say, yes, the 5 rooms are truly ready. All the conditions of satisfaction have been met, not only on inspections, quality, completeness of work, but also you finished it when we ask you to finish it so we can begin our work and keep our promise on the project to begin the drywall installation. So what makes a promise reliable? In other words, how can you trust a promise? I can do it when I have the ability to say no. And I don't think most people realize the ability to say no is a promise. The person making the promise needs to be able to say, with the authority and responsibility, I cannot meet your request. I'm a performer, and you, the customer, I cannot meet that request. You want all this drywall hung in these 5 rooms in 1 day. I'm telling you, it's 2 days. So I'm saying no to 1, and now I'll negotiate to 2. I'm able to perform the work, or I supervise the work. In other words, I'm a superintendent or a crew foreman on a smaller project, and I can control the work. So therefore, I have the authority to make the promise. I can estimate how long the work task will take. I have control over the crews, the productivity, the equipment, the workers, the material deliveries. I can control, do I have enough information? And therefore, I can tell you it's 2 days versus 1 day. I have the ability to make a promise on time. I also make a promise. I have the capacity, materials, equipment, personnel. I'll allocate it appropriately so that I can keep my promise. I am not having private unspoken conversations in conflict with the promise. I'm not to your face saying I can do this and behind your back whisper to 2 of the other trade partners on the project, well, I just told them that to keep them quiet and quit bothering me and asking me what I can do. And I'm also responsible to clean up when we're finished with the work in that area. I control that. So therefore, I can make a reliable promise. So this commitment process is a conversation between two people. And I know from what I've heard from active contractors that practice lean, this part of the last planner system is a face-to-face conversation daily and weekly. So which of these 7 are reliable promises? We have, I will do, maybe I will, I'll try, we'll see what happens. Yes, I will do it if, I could probably do it. No, I cannot do it. And sure, I'll try to do it. Which one of these are useful to you in your promises, in your life? These are the 3 that are promises. I will do such and such. You discuss the conditions of satisfaction. You set when it will be finished. You commit resources. Yes, I will do it if, in other words, the drywaller says, I'll hang the drywall in 5 rooms in 2 days. If the 3 of you finish your work and meet the conditions of satisfaction that we've negotiated. And the third is, no, I cannot do it. I cannot meet your request for 1 day. It has to be 2 days. So a reliable promise isn't what I call tap dancing around the issue. It's just a straightforward promise from the person that has the authority and responsibility to control all of the resources to keep the promise. We're going to move to another short discussion question here. And I'd hope by now everyone's logged in and can share through the chat feature. How might creating a commitment-oriented environment improve your team's outcomes? Let me reword that. You want your projects to be successful. You want your projects to have a culture that when a promise is made, it's reliable, and therefore everyone's promises are kept. So to create an environment, the way I look at it and for what I have read and heard from others, it's a culture of promises made, promises kept. So you're sitting here this morning and you're thinking, all right, I'm going to have a culture on my project when people make a promise, I can count on it and it's reliable. So I want you to dream and imagine people that make you promises on your projects. You can trust them and you can count on them. And I can't stress enough how you have to be able to trust someone. If everyone is making a reliable promise, and when everyone makes these reliable promises, you can trust them, what would be the outcome on your current projects? And maybe you already have this, and I will applaud you and congratulate you. Jenny, let's see what people are sharing when they have a project with trust and people keep their promises. Jenny?
So we have several answers here. More predictable schedule outcomes and align expectations.
I like the first one because it is about staying on schedule.
Customer satisfaction. And I think it would also, if everyone has reliable promises, you're going to end up creating a culture where people are more likely to make those reliable promises in the future. And that actually goes along with the other response we just had in accountability amongst team members and a clear direction forward. Ongoing trust. I think that's a good one. Good handoffs. Customer trusts you for future assignments and projects. And that's all that I'm seeing for right now, Larry.
Jenny, thank you. And thanks to everyone. I will agree with every one of those. And I mentioned this a minute ago, trust. Reliable commitments need increased trust. From the friends that you have, I challenge every one of you. Do you trust your friends? Of course you do, because you found people in your life that you can't trust. Don't make good friends. Well, in business, trust is important. Sincerity is involved. Yes, I personally promise to you. I mean, we sign our business letters sincerely. You sign your name, which is your way of saying, I am stating this to you truthfully, and what I tell you is true, and I will keep my promises. Trust has reliability. In other words, when you make a promise to someone, people can count on it because you always deliver. You make commitments. They're straightforward. They're not unclear. They're not vague. They are, I will do this work in this area with these resources by this date. And with that, you're talking about your character, your integrity to keep a promise. In other words, is your word golden? If you have a fist bump, a handshake, or an elbow bump in a meeting, can I therefore say the deal is sealed? And of course, you need to be competent at what you do. That's a given because you're on the project, you have the skills, you have the resources, and you can make this project happen and keep your promises. And you consistently keep your promises day to day, week to week, month to month. People can count on your promises every day from the beginning of your involvement on a project to the end. There is a book that was published several years ago, and you say, oh, yeah, Stephen Covey. If you look at the fine print, it's Stephen M.R. Covey, and this is called The Speed of Trust. And I bought an electronic version so I could read it. And when trust is not present, people pad their prices, people slow down, and your costs go up. I think generalize that with every project. When trust is increased, project speed increases and cost should go down. The Speed of Trust is a fascinating read. Trust has to be the highest value in your company. If not, something bad's going to happen to you and your team. The Speed of Trust teaches a critical lesson. Only organization level of trust can garner a culture of true commitment. Vague thinking, broken promises, and you sure can't have forced compliance. Forcing people to do something isn't leadership, and it also doesn't result in a promise that you can keep. I mean, trust is hard to establish. It becomes real, you can measure it. It measures both the reliability of a promise and even the character of the person. Trust that's lost can be restored. We all know how difficult that is. It can take you months to build trust with someone. It can be lost in a minute when someone breaks their promise. So what we really want is trust, and this helps us build high-performing teams. A high-performance team, everyone trusts each other. You need to build this culture of trust and personal respect, and your team can produce results more quickly. It's important to focus time and energy on building your high performance teams. Many project teams that are custom assembled, every project, designers, subconsultants, owner, CMGC, major trade partners will go through trust building exercises before the project kicks off. It really does help for people that personally know one another and begin to trust one another. I'm sure every one of you have experienced a team where there's someone that doesn't trust anyone, and that's very unfortunate. So what are the characteristics of building a high performance team based on trust? People trust one another. They trust each other. They trust their promises. There is respect between the team members. There is a culture of keeping your promise in front of all of your peers, whether you're the CMGC trade partner, design consultants, owner's rep. When you make the promise, the culture is we're going to hold you accountable and you need to keep it. You celebrate the success of both large and small accomplishments. In other words, it's okay to try and make a mistake and then learn from it and be successful, and those are celebrated. It is not a culture where everyone is punished for the slightest error. It is absolutely not that. And you need to remove all the silos that everyone hides in contractually. And my challenge to this profession is quit signing contracts that require you to be in a silo with the door locked and you're wearing boxing gloves when you come out the door to fight. That is not how a successful project team should function contractually. You need to break down the silos. You need to be in a team huddle. There is a team leader, and the analogy I use is you have the quarterback with the 10 other players. And when a play is called by the team with the input of the coaches, the senior leadership team, all 11 agreed this is what we're going to do. So break down the silos, build a high performance team, trust one another, and follow the leaders. So let's first view a project as a promise, and then we're going to look at task as a promise, which I think many of you are familiar with. So delivering a project is a promise. Well, the owner promises a new facility. It could be manufacturing to the community, which creates jobs, which impacts other businesses. It could be a healthcare facility. It could be a distribution center. It could be a school to educate our children. Owners make promises to the community where the project will be constructed. A public owner promises a better highway system, a better bridge. The promises go on from the owners. The builders and the designers meet the promise, the request from the customer as performers, and say, yes, we can design that, we can supervise the construction, and we'll hand you the project that you asked for. And within that, project team members make thousands of promises, day to day, task to task. But at the project level, it's all the team members making promises and keeping the promises between the owner, the consultants, and all of the contractors and constructors. So what you have, and in this diagram, it shows dozens of promises. I would say your projects have thousands, if not more than tens of thousands of daily promises. So the project is a very big promise delivered by a project team. And there's conditions of satisfaction at the project level, and there's conditions of satisfaction at the task level. And let's cover project level conditions of satisfaction first. There are measurable statements that inform a project team about which test a project must pass as to be accepted as success. What are the terms of conditions of satisfaction? Follow the plans, follow the specs. At this price, no more than this price, per this schedule, it's either a start and a finish date or many multiple intermediate milestone dates, and you're measured against it. Quality, schedule, you're measured against the safety standards on your projects. I think every owner wants all of you as builders to run a safe project. These project level conditions of satisfaction help inform the decision-making process of the team. Conditions of satisfaction for the project should be checked daily, weekly by everyone on the team to make sure they're meeting or exceeding these conditions of satisfaction from the ultimate customer, the client. And they're developed by the team, and they need to include the owner. You need the owner's voice in setting project level conditions of satisfaction. And then it goes down the chain to the GCCM, and they, with their trade partners and vendors and suppliers, negotiate and establish project level conditions of satisfaction. And many of you say, yes, we sign contracts with one another that sets in many paragraphs and pages the conditions of satisfaction for you to work on this project. Here's some examples, and the first few are out of healthcare, and here is an example from Banner Health Team Fusion. This first example says improve patient satisfaction survey results, or the score, by 5%. The second one here is from healthcare, improve the average door to discharge time by 30 minutes. The next examples are about project examples that are right out of our everyday frustrations and successes. Use the last planner system to track and manage constraints. In our earlier presentation this year on the last planner system, removing constraints from activities give you a chance to complete them as promised. We measure it using the percent plan complete, the PPC. Here they set it at 75%. Some people say set it at 80 or 85%. So we measure our promises. How many did we keep? So there's a metric involved. Construction documents, 100% coordinated. Asking the right questions to meet the conditions of satisfaction seems to be necessary so there's no misunderstanding on what is expected from the builders by the design team and ultimately the owner of the project. Safety reviews maintains a 95% excellent rating. I'd hope the goal is 100%. Housekeeping review of 90% or greater. I hope again it's approaching 100% to keep a safe work environment on your projects. Innovation by prefabrication, and I will add modularization. And team members going through an onboarding process so they're oriented to the project, whether it's a worker in the field so they understand the conditions of working safe and the safety hazards, to someone being brought on to the management team. Other examples, you design a facility that has flexibility and adaptability so that as technology changes over 30 years, it can be more easily and cost effectively modified. I can just imagine what a healthcare provider looks at, what they've seen over the past decade alone in technology changes. How do they build for tomorrow, today, that makes it feasible to quickly and economically change the technology in medical services? You want quality the first time. When it's built, it meets the minimum or exceeds the expectations. You don't want facility disruptions during construction. If you're working in medical or manufacturing and educational, some contractors call them the 90-day wonders over the summer, where you go into a existing educational facility for K-12, do remodeling, do abatement work, replace mechanical electrical systems and finishes. They're not going to delay the opening of school for the K-12 system because you're a week late. Set minimum average improvement, set it 100%. Implement lean approaches to include at a minimum implementing and using correctly the last planner system, solving problems with the A3 problem solving method, big room, which we presented on earlier this year, work clusters, visual management tools, sticky notes, colored up plans, and using the 5 S's to keep things organized and ready to work. So I'm going to again ask all of you to share through the chat feature. Share some examples of possible project level conditions of satisfaction, not task level. We'll get to that here in a few minutes. Examples of possible project conditions of satisfaction. I will share one that's the easiest low-hanging fruit this morning. One of the conditions with a multi-phase medical facility would be start date and completion date for each of the 5 phases of a medical project that includes renovation and addition. And every one of those start and finish milestones is a condition of satisfaction for the project. I hope that all of you have experienced project conditions of satisfaction. They're probably in your written contract. So I'll turn it over to Jenny and let her share what you have experienced as project level conditions of satisfaction. Jenny?
We've got several coming in now. So one is 0 lost time accidents. There's one example, safety onboarding background checks for all on-site workers at a children's hospital. And for field employees, % of apprentices, % of minorities, % of field within certain counties.
Those are great project level conditions of satisfaction. I've experienced every one of those in my construction career. I want to thank you for sharing. Jenny, any last comments?
We had one more come in. Closeout documentation 100% complete within 90 days of substantial completion.
Great. Thank you. In the interest of time, we're going to move on here. So what are your challenges to develop a condition of satisfaction? You're going to negotiate this with another person and their team. So what are the challenges? Well, it needs to be measurable. In other words, you can tell, like plan % complete, the PPC, if people are keeping their daily promises on the job site. But you could also do PPC on promises from the design team and the owner and the CMGC. Here's something I have used for years. Are they SMART? Are they very specific? Are they measurable? Is the promise attainable? Is it realistic? In other words, does this person making the promise have all the resources and authority? And T, time bound. The challenges of developing a condition of satisfaction, you need to look at, can you measure it? You don't want to confuse it with programmatic issues on the project. You want to keep these promises alive and continually reference them. These conditions of satisfaction, you can check your progress because they're SMART. And you're always looking at, is it correct? Is it complete? Is it done? Is it finished on time? And from the owner's perspective, did it meet my cost expectations? You look at it from the team level for everyone on the team, just not the owner. You keep them very concise, as I say, specific as a SMART goal. And then you hold people accountable to their conditions of satisfaction on cost, quality, safety, budget. Those are challenges all of us have faced in contract negotiations and day-to-day leadership of our project team. So I don't think this is new to anyone out there, but let's switch from project level conditions of satisfaction to task level conditions of satisfaction. This diagram's right out of the last planner system from a prior presentation. You have the 5 connected conversations. You have the milestone planning. Then you have the phase poll, which is either the paper sticky notes or the virtual sticky note plans that many people are migrating to, that was forced on us with COVID and our physical separations. You have the crew leaders, superintendents, and foremen doing look-ahead planning with the management team of 3 to 6 weeks. You have the weekly work plan. What are we doing for the next 5 to and possibly 6 days on Saturday? And what are our daily plans? We have our daily huddles. And then from all of that, you reflect, how well did we did? Let's learn to do it better. We start all over again. The last planner system uses conditions of satisfaction for task promises. Say, what do you mean? Well, let's look at a typical promise. Don says, I'm going to make a promise and it'll be done by March 24th at noon. And I'll provide a floor plan showing all spaces that require floor penetrations larger than 4 feet by 4 feet in a PDF format. This example doesn't have a requester, but I'd say this example has a request to anyone. Let's say a design build project. You tell the MEP trades, do you need any box outs greater than 4 feet by 4 feet? Because I'm the structural engineer and I need to design the structure so that the structural bid package goes out with all the appropriate openings through the floors for all the vertical MEP items, such as ductwork or major pipe chases. The last planner system is a task-oriented condition of satisfaction negotiation. The customer makes a request, the performer negotiates to meet that request. Let's go through some examples here to make this clear. A task level condition of satisfaction. I'll give you a call on your cell phone by 5 o'clock today. It's a short one. I will provide a decision on the color scheme by Thursday close of business. So that could be an owner responding to the architect's choices for colors. I will send a Zoom invite to everyone on the list for the next owner, architect, contractor meeting by the close of business today. Really specific. It's short, probably do it in 10 minutes. I will provide the cost estimate with a list of possible risk in an Excel format by the end of January 23rd. The deliverable is noted as an Excel file, not just some vague, specific, measurable. I can do it today or I can do it by the 23rd. It's realistic. I have the ability and it's time bound. Now, what are some of the tools you can use? Last year in our community of practice, we presented in a prior meeting on the A3 process for decision making. And I know the form is small and hard to read on your screen this morning. So conditions of satisfaction support the decision-making problem-solving process by ensuring that decision aligns with the conditions of satisfaction. When you solve a problem, what do you measure it against? The conditions of satisfaction that the team have negotiated. You look at the level of alignment, red, yellow, green. In other words, we have a problem, we need to solve it, we need a solution, but does this solution solve a problem that doesn't exist because it's not a condition of satisfaction? Or are we solving a problem to meet a condition of satisfaction as a project team? We want to keep the team focused on what is important for the success of the project. Project level conditions of satisfaction. Check your solutions using the A3 method to make sure you're staying focused on moving the ball down the field, not talking on the sideline, and maintaining the plan, do, check, act regarding the conditions of satisfaction. The A3 form walks you through this and can help you make that decision. And what does this look like as a flow diagram? Well, you have some ideas. They're shared with the appropriate stakeholders. It's analyzed, many options. You look at dollar impact, cost impact, schedule impact. How well does it meet the conditions of satisfaction for the owner? In other words, it could be a functionality, it could be a durability, it could be a performance. And this work cluster makes a recommendation to the leadership team for the project. It goes to the core leaders who are the decision makers. They'll check it against budget. They may accept the recommendation, they may reject it, or they may say, revise and resubmit, we're getting close, let's take another run at it. This, I'm sure every one of you are familiar with, and these conversations have taken place tens of thousands of times with your clients on your projects. I'd like you to participate one more time this morning. We have about 15 minutes left. And the question, how might you start to incorporate conditions of satisfaction in your work? Now, I want you to look at this very broadly. It could be conditions of satisfaction in your contracts, conditions of satisfaction as a designer with the owner. So if there are owners tuned in today, what would be a condition of satisfaction for you? If you're a trade partner, what's a condition of satisfaction between you and your vendors? If you're a CMGC, what are your conditions of satisfaction with your client? But also, what are your conditions of satisfaction with your trade partners? Jenny, I'll turn it over to you and see what people have to say this morning.
One thing that I've actually experienced that works very well is having action items at the end of an agenda to be completed before the next time that group meets. So that's a personal one that recently I've been doing quite a bit and seeing actual results come out of. We also have a response of work with owner early in project and publish project level conditions of satisfaction. So a task to then move on to the project level.
Well, thanks for your contributions. Any more? I would love to hear what you have to say. Yes, we write contracts between one another, but there are tens of thousands of promises made outside of the contract so that we day-to-day keep our promises. So we have the project level conditions of satisfaction, we have the task level. Well, thank you for your input. We'll move on here in the interest of time. I showed this at the beginning in the introduction. What you see listed here, if you're at the unaware level, there are different introductory presentations and courses that you may take. And this morning is the newest one in the LCI Lean Learning series, whether it's an introduction to Lean Project Delivery, introduction to the Last Planner System, which we have done earlier this year, Lean in the design phase. If you're a designer, next week's design forum is for you. Introduction to Lean in Design Build and the business case for Lean. And then the next opportunity to learn more and become more aware is target value delivery, Lean in Design phase. Again, mindset of effective big room. We introduced that earlier this year. And the Last Planner System in Design, I sat through a 4-hour seminar on this, and it is eye-opening to bring in an LCI certified instructor. And conducting gimbal walks. Learn how to do that. Now, after becoming aware and you've learned something, now the challenge to you is to go out and use it. And using it, you'll begin to understand its application. There's knowledge, but until it's applied, It's just kind of a theory in the back of your head, and you practice it to become competent, to master it, and continually striving to master your lean skills on your projects with the goal to improve the performance of your project team. There are other learning opportunities. I've read all three of the books shown in the diagram. We have our Greater Des Moines Community Practice meetings the second Tuesday every month, and we'll be deciding this Friday in our leadership meeting about when we return live. We have some really exciting lean project presentations planned beginning next month in June, all the way through December. Congress, as I noted earlier, is in October, live in person in Phoenix, and the design forum is virtual next week from LCI. You can also contact LCI to hire and retain a certified coach and instructor to bring into your project team. There are other e-learning opportunities that LCI offers through the LCI e-learning opportunities. Now, one of the lean tools is to conduct a plus delta. And several months ago, we decided to change to a digital evaluation form. So we're going to ask you to give your feedback here on the evaluation form, not in the chat box. So if you would do us a favor, on the lower right corner of the screen, the QR code, take your smart device, phone or tablet, and open that URL and complete the evaluation. It's a short evaluation form. It asks about today's presentation. It'll ask you what future topics you would like to have us include in our monthly meetings. It gives you the opportunity to volunteer to do a lean project presentation in the future. It also, you can note if you're interested in becoming a financial supporter of our Greater Des Moines Community of Practice. And again, I would like to thank this month's financial supporter, A+ Communications Security out of Des Moines. They provide security and communication solutions for commercial, retail, and residential. Noted is the email address if you like a PDF copy of today's presentation slides. And so you stay in touch with us, follow us on LinkedIn. Go to your LinkedIn account, search for LCI Greater Des Moines Community of Practice, click follow. We don't have a private group. We want anyone and everyone to follow us, and we post all of our future meeting announcements on our LinkedIn page. We posted this month several times. We look forward to seeing you next month. We'll have our first lean project presentation by J.E. Dunn. We'll discuss Friday if this goes live or virtual, and stay tuned. Follow us on LinkedIn. And with that, I will conclude the presentation this morning, get you back to your work early, and I will leave this image up for the next several minutes, Jenny, so they can scan the QR code and complete the evaluation form. So thanks for your feedback. Hope to see you next month, the second Tuesday of June. Thank you.